Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, crack-a-noon to our folks on the East Coast who are probably just getting into the office right now to be that crack-a-noon club. I am Todd Obert, President and CEO of Productive, joined alongside me, Pete Greco, VP of Sales and Technology. He got in early today. He was in at like 10:55, so before 11. Getting ready for this thing. Just kidding. We're Central Time. Anyway, very excited to talk to you today, our newest knowledge series, where hopefully we will help you from preventing the executives from harming your organizations inadvertently. We don't want to allow them to hurt their security posture. If you have been with us in the past, you know how we do it. We meet Productive in 1 minute. Then we get right down to it. The right down to it means I turn the microphone over to Pete Greco and shut my mouth. So we will be doing that, straight away. If you do have a question, which we encourage, please utilize that chat feature, and we will get your question answered in a very efficient manner. But now, who is Productive? Well, I'm very glad you asked. Productive provides security and storage software and services for mid-sized companies. We have a specialized team that offers expertise, technical licensing questions, so we can help you and you do not have to navigate the World Wide Web all by your lonesome. We also implement, test, and optimize the products that we sell. Everything from a security assessment to a penetration test. We do configuration, UTM services, optimization, endpoint health check, all of the things that can help to improve your security posture. We also produce a lot of third-party content. You'll find that at productivecorp.com/content or our YouTube channel. This knowledge series, along with all the other ones, are all out there. The bottom line is we have the resources to help you, whether it's implementation, assessment, licensing, optimization services, or market knowledge. That's what we do. We're here. help@productivecorp.com. So let us know how we can help you. One of the ways we do that is by producing things like the Knowledge Series. We had you and your peers asked us years ago, hey, what about things happening in technology that aren't just the features and benefits of the products themselves? What trends are happening? Where can we be more secure? How do we defend against crypto wall? What things do we need to think about? That's where this topic today came from, and that's where future topics come from. So if you enjoyed today, let us know. And if you feel like we missed the mark, let us know. Or if you feel like there's another topic, let us know as well. So now, just like I promised, I am going to be hopping off the microphone and turning it over to Pete Greco, who is our VP of Sales and Technology. Pete brings a world of experience to this presentation. He's been working with end users and IT management for the past 15 years, helping them not only implement technology but solve the problems of well, we can't eliminate the end user. I mean legally, I don't believe, but helping to minimize and create positive behaviors in the environment. So let's give a warm virtual round of applause for Mr. Pete Greco. Pete?
Yeah, thanks so much, Todd. As far as eliminating the end users, I know plenty of our customers would like to. From time to time, for sure. That's a pretty funny way of putting it. But anyway, we're going to get right into it. Thanks so much for the introduction, Todd. I think I've given everybody ample time to read the agenda. So let's continue to get underway here. So everybody, obviously knows that we're sitting on tons of data, or you probably wouldn't even be coming to an event like this today. Right? There's lots of incidents where data theft is totally electronic in nature, right? Meaning that it originated with some kind of right, bootkit or rootkit or keystroke logger or something like this that is infiltrated through some kind of a worm or some kind of self-replicating file, right? Tons of that still going on, but a huge bulk of issues now originating with what I call human assist, right? And this can manifest itself in many ways. Finding an infected thumb drive right outside your thumb drawer, front door that's getting plugged in, right? Very common, and we've done a lot of webinars where you'll hear us use the phrase spear phishing, right? I think everybody is very familiar with phishing campaigns. We're getting asked a lot about how to stop these, better ways to stop them, how to educate end users about these things, because some of the emails are getting quite sophisticated, and then they're taking that up a notch, right, and turning that into a spear phishing attempt where we're really targeting a specific kind of end user or a specific kind of role, or for certain kinds of high-profile organizations, might actually be really targeting a specific individual at that organization, right? And so with a spear phishing attempt, the human assist component of that is typically going to be that they're clicking on the link that is going to initiate that attack, and that's going to begin typically with a backdoor dropper, and then communications to a CNC server, and then we're going to let the data exfiltration and threat infiltration begin. Right, and there really is no kind of employee that's exempt from being a victim, though there's certain kinds of roles that are higher targets than others, and as of recent, right, we've seen a ton of them that are more finance related. Here's an email from the CEO to the CFO saying, cut a check to this organization or that organization, or ACH, actually it's more ACH, this money into this bank account, allowing perpetrators to abscond with hundreds of thousands of dollars into the millions in a few crazy cases. Right, 3/4 of companies have a security related event every year. My guess is it's really 100% of companies if you take it down to the base level and really talk about simple malware infestations, right? And so this is really referring to information or data that is really critical to the organization. Ransomware is a huge component that is costing dearly, right? And you can check out an upcoming webinar that we're going to have regarding spoofing, which I was just kind of referring to that. That's really the new rager that's got CFOs and finance people shipping off money to weird locations based on faked emails from high-level execs, CEOs, CFOs, this kind of stuff, and it's really turning into millions and millions of dollars that is being intentionally sent out based on fake instructions. Right now, much of employee-related incidents are unintentional. A person with access to confidential data loads it into his personal Dropbox account so that he can finish it up from home. Right, he's working on a big project, needs to get it done by the morning, or needs to have a group meeting to really put the final touches on this, so loads it up to the Dropbox account, downloads it at home, and now this secure data or data that needs to be protected, that should be encrypted, resides in 2 other additional locations that are not secured or controlled by the organization. Right? We did an event a while back where we were talking about how data can proliferate across an environment and get into these unsecured locations. And as I was preparing for this, I was trying to look up or get some screenshots on file permissions. I noticed that we had somehow at some point made a copy of what we call our S drive, kind of our catch-all drive. And part of what we were trying to look at is how has sensitive data made it into this drive? Well, not only is sensitive data made it into that drive, we somehow made a copy of that, and so now we have it in 2 different locations that that we weren't securing the way that we would want to secure that kind of data, right? And this kind of story we hear all the time from our clients. So 14% intentional theft, right? The stories that make the news are related to PII, frequently from hospitals or big insurance companies, right? Target, obviously all over the news. Home Depot, big news story a couple years ago, right? These stories get lots of attention. Target, especially, we're in the land of Target, so we were hearing it probably more than a lot of the folks on this call. They're name brand organizations that everybody knows about. The data theft is really huge numbers, which is interesting. This is the kind of stuff that makes it to your 60 Minutes or 2020 or Dateline NBC. I don't really watch any of those shows, but right, that's the kind of thing that they're looking for. The thing that you typically don't hear about, right, is our top sales executive went to work for one of our competitors, taking his client lists, taking some battle cards, and taking some purchase history information, and this led to a decline in sales by 13% or 18% for the next 3 years, causing wage freezes and maybe causing a few layoffs. That kind of story doesn't make it into the news, but that's what's happening to the bulk of folks out there, is data that is sensitive to them. It could be PII, right? And that's not good, and that's the kind of thing that can get you sued and get you in hot water and get you into the news. The thing that doesn't make it into that is a employee takes your data to a competitor and it costs your organization dearly. That is not an interesting news story, but it is painful to the organization, right? So here's an example, and I really was not that familiar with Lyft, right? COO, who's the organization, goes to the company I have heard of, Uber, right, with lots of confidential data. He's now helping a key competitor really take off in the marketplace, and so that market share is coming right out of Lyft's pocket.
Putting the hurt on Lyft with knowing, basically all their operational advantages he is sharing with Uber.
Exactly. And so now these guys are behind in an area where they were the pioneer, right? And these kinds of things happen. Sometimes it's you get outsold or outmarketed, or somebody just simply does it way better than you're doing it. And it's a lot easier to get ahead when you know what your competition is doing, and you've got the inside, you've got the inside info. So this is a case of right, intentional theft happening. Recently, and this was, I don't know if you recall, Todd, I want to say that this was last summer. We have an event featuring this Careerbuilder Attack where you can really learn a lot more about it if you're interested, and you can check it out on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/productivecontent to see the full deal. What made this attack so effective, right, is it really is kind of a spear phishing campaign. The attackers figured out, here's a couple of key jobs that we would like to apply for, and what we're going to do is send over an infected resume. This is the kind of document that a hiring manager is expecting to receive from an unknown person, right? When we hire, we don't know who's going to apply, but we know that we should be expecting resumes, and we're typically going to open those resumes, right? So these guys send over some targeted resumes, and when you're just making up your work experience, it's very easy to be well qualified for whatever job you're applying to, right? And so that HR person or that hiring manager is going to be likely to take a look at this resume, and when they open it up and see that this is a candidate that would be well suited to our organization, they're going to be likely to forward that resume to others in the organization, right, who would be participants in hiring for this role. And the roles that they were specifically targeting were developers, finance people, and one other that's escaping me, right? And so what's happening in this Word document is we're taking advantage of an exploit, or an exploit is taking advantage of us to leverage unpatched Office installations. That's going to take you through a whole series of events that we kind of referenced earlier, starting with a backdoor dropper, a command and control server, and then data infill, or I should say threat infill, data exfil, and key targets. That's the most critical part of this whole thing. Is it's
this was a
targets.
This was a nasty one, P. Yeah, it was last July we did it. It's on. I just found it on the YouTube channel. It's right up there. The the phishing attack, anatomy of a phishing attack with Careerbuilder, and wow, I mean,
yeah.
Because
so if we did that in July, it would have been that previous spring that this was really circulating pretty heavily. The threats have not been knocked off of line. Careerbuilder has shored up their side of things, but they were really leveraging the nuclear exploit kit. That is still getting widely used, and now is being appropriated to deliver CryptoWall 4.0. It's one of the key tools using to deploy CryptoWall, right? So pretty prevalent and ongoing. Can be somewhat easily defended against with the appropriate patches. So many folks don't have those patches deployed, right? That it makes it still a prevalent threat for sure. So now we're targeting high-ranking employees who typically are going to have more access to sensitive data, confidential data, and may have just wide open access across the network. Right, and one of the big issues that we hear from customers is where do I begin? How do I get started? And that's definitely something that we can help you with, right? But a lot of what we hear is we're doing a lot of this stuff already. The typical employee is going to have a solid endpoint protection. Maybe we're doing a great job with patching. Maybe we could do a little better job with patching, right? We're logging their activities. We're filtering the internet. We've got fairly sophisticated anti-spam technologies that we spend a lot of time implementing and tweaking and tuning to try and eliminate those phishing attempts and any infected emails from making it down to them. But the area that we're not protecting is our execs or our C-level folks. A lot of times the business owner or the CEO or the folks in the C-suite are saying, I don't want my machine to run slow. I want to do whatever I want to do. I want to be able to use Dropbox. I want to be able to do these things, and not recognizing that they're now the vulnerable spot in the organization. So the very first thing that you can do, right, to help up that game is set some of your protections in monitor but do not block or log only mode, so that you can at least get visibility into what's happening, so that we can implement protections if we start identifying that maybe a data exfil is taking place. Right? If you're already at least monitoring those transmissions, you're a short step away from actually being able to implement protections and stop the bleeding. Some data will have leaked out, right? But at least you can stop the bleeding before it gets too severe. So one of the challenges that our clients face as we're talking to them about this kind of thing is, how do I even go about doing this? My boss has already said, or my boss's boss has already said, I want this stuff, but not for me. We've seen some truly hard to manage situations where the boss says, I don't like these protections on me, so I'm not going to enforce them on the rest of the staff or the rest of the team, leaving the organization wide open, right? So some quick suggestions that we're going to make. First of all, if you're engaged with us, let us help you. Let us help you. We have these kinds of conversations all the time. We love to get in and talk tech, but we understand that when you're talking to a CEO who has a finance background, or he's got a sales background or a marketing background or whatever non-technical background it is, right? They coming in and talking about bytes and bits and patches and CVEs and this kind of stuff is simply going to cause a guy to glaze over and maybe take a short nap, right? So we're going to help convert the requirements for these kinds of products into the business conversation and talk about the loss of income and the loss of competitive advantage and the true cost of downtime and how that downtime comes. So how we do that, and this is what we are advising you all to do as well, is the first thing we do is begin with the end in mind. What are we trying to accomplish? And let's work backwards from there. Right? We got to be brief and to the point. We've got to have some bullet points about why this kind of protection is important. A couple of examples on what could really happen and what really has happened, and they are easy to find, folks. They are easy to find. You take a look at dark reading. You take a look at maybe Kaspersky's threat post or Krebs on security. Tons and tons of websites out there. CSO magazine, CIO magazine, right? And you can find all kinds. Yeah, exactly. Naked security. You can find all kinds of information out there that you can convert into a simple, easy-to-tell story about something that has really happened, right? I like to stay away from worst-case scenario. Did you hear about the guy that had a hurricane and a tornado, in the same time? That's why you need disaster recovery. Well, that is an unlikely occurrence, and it belittles the point that you're really trying to make. So, right, be real. Relate it to the business goals. What are we really trying to do? We have a lot of sensitive data. We have a lot of confidential data that we don't want our competitors to be aware of, right? So how do we protect it? How do we treat it the right way? If you're a hospital, right, HIPAA is telling you what you need to do with your patient data. If you're a publicly traded company, SOX is guiding you on what you need to do, right? But what if you're a privately held corporation that's really just trying to grow and expand and be successful in your market category, right? HIPAA is not going to apply. You might not have PII, which is what a lot of folks think about when they think about data loss, right? So what is that data that's really sensitive and important to you? And remember, you're the expert, right? You got to speak authoritatively, but you got to be well prepared when you go in. And this is the kind of stuff that we would absolutely love to help you with. Recently, we had a client that wanted us to be a part of their presentation, and the C-level guys made it clear they didn't want any outsiders in. And so we were able to review his PowerPoint with him and give him some suggestions on how to simplify some of the stuff that he put on there. He put on everything that he put on was accurate and very correct, but drilled a little too deep into some log information and some of this kind of stuff that we thought would be maybe just a little over the heads of the non-technical guys. So we're able to give him some great advice on how to bring that down a little bit, right? And so the next thing that really is becoming a base level requirement is having some honest conversations with the executives, and help them understand why these protections are needing to be increased for their level. I think what a lot of organizations are missing is that the highest level folks potentially need the most protections because they access the most sensitive data, right? So how can we work together to increase those protections and make them more bulletproof, right? When you break it down for any exec of, do you want to be the reason why the organization has a decline in business or potentially is heading towards bankruptcy, right? See Chesapeake Energy, for example. CEO leaves the organization, starts up a competitive organization with all the competitive data. Those guys' stock was once trading in the 20s. It's now trading sub $2. Conversations of bankruptcy are approaching.
And there's people in these organizations that it's their job to manage risk. And most execs, 99.99% don't want to expose their organization to undue risk, right? They're on the job of mitigating risk, increasing revenue and creating competitive advantage, right? So when you point
Exactly.
to the fact that this can reduce their risk, they are going to be listening. They are unwittingly, and they do not want to unwittingly create, a potential risk for their business. That's not how they're wired.
That's exactly right, and I think a lot of times, Todd, they just simply don't understand how it could happen.
Yep.
Right, is one of the big challenges. So a couple of additional things for protecting those executives, right, is understanding all the various ways that they are exposed. What are they accessing? Are they a Dropbox user? Are you thinking about Dropbox for Business where you can get control over that? Are they using tablets? How are we going to manage a lost tablet? Right? What kind of access points are they opening up with the technology that they're using? If we don't know all the stuff that they're doing, it's very hard to figure out how to protect them. Right? And then we need to be reviewing log information. And for a lot of clients that we talk to about SIM, right, for log management and log correlation and figuring out when logs should be there are missing, that gives us a heads up. What we're advising a lot of organizations, and typically you're going to be doing this on the networking gear and the critical servers, right? And what we're recommending for a lot of organizations is actually monitoring the logs of some of the key execs so that you can start figuring out if someone is getting attacked, someone is exfilling a lot of data, this kind of stuff, so that we can start figuring out we need to cut a connection while we review and figure out what's going on. And then one of the most important things is when you identify that there's been an issue or an incident, we got to make sure that it's getting shared with the right folks so that everybody's educated about what has happened and what the next steps are to start remediating. And again, this is the kind of thing that we can help with. Yeah.
So Pete, so one thing I'd like to add is, right, an exec may come to you or somebody on your team and say, I need this type of access, or I need to be able to do these things, right? And they are asking for access. Now, what they are assuming is that you are going to provide it in a secure way. They are not necessarily going to connect the dots that you giving them, unfiltered access or unfettered access to something is going to create a security vulnerability. They're going to assume that you are doing it in a secure way. So don't let that gap in communication cause an issue.
Exactly. Yep. That is a great point, Todd. And sometimes I think some of the problems that we run into is wanting to complete the task so quickly that we don't take the time to think about what are the unintended consequences of providing this kind of access or opening this kind of access, and are there other ways that we can provide the same service in a secure way? And I think one of the areas where you're right on is sometimes they're making the assumption that whatever you're going to do is going to be secure, or you wouldn't do it that way. So they're not maybe understanding the whole picture. And I think in a lot of cases it's that security is not part of the thought process, because that's not their job to be thinking about it. They're thinking about how are we going to get some success going into the next quarter, how are we going to have a successful year, how are we going to complete this M&A, how are we going to do whatever it is that my role is supposed to be doing, right? And that creates a lot of challenges for folks. So one of the ways that we help a lot of organizations get visibility into what's going on is through vulnerability assessments and penetration tests, where we can help you right, understand where the gaps are, where the holes are, and then help create a plan to move your security forward into the future in a way that makes sense and is reasonable for your organization, and give you a deliverable that can be presented to the execs, to the C-level suite, to help them understand where they themselves are vulnerable and at risk, and why you think that we need to do some of these action items. So, Todd, that's all I've got. I'll flip it back over to you, and we can wrap this bad boy up.
Yeah, just keep progressing with it. You're at right at the end here. We do appreciate you guys taking the time to join us today. We know that you have a lot of things in your day, so taking time to spend 30 minutes with us is much appreciated. This whole presentation is going to be out on our YouTube channel, which is Productive Content, or it will also be on our website, which is productivecorp.com/content. Let us know if you liked it. Let us know if you... What's that?
And Laserdisc.
We are going with the large form factor Laserdisc as our homage to the late 80s, early 90s, because I think those things at capacity were maybe 4 gigs. So we can we'll make sure to fill those up with Laserdisc quality information. Yes, and as one of our customers, we will also be delivering it not only on VHS but beta, which we find is an ever popular format for our customers. We think most of the stuff should be viewed in beta for optimal quality. But with that, I am Todd Obert, along with Pete Greco, wishing you a fantastic balance of your day and week, and we'll talk